The worn-out sneakers I used for work squeaked softly against the freshly polished hospital floor. Each step echoed the steady practiced rhythm of my heart, a metronome of my dedication. I'm Edith, a 66-year-old nurse with silver hair tucked into a neat bun. My life's work etched in the laughter lines around my eyes. Beneath my starched uniform, I hid a quiet longing, a desire for something more than the antiseptic smell of the hospital and the hum of fluorescent lights. The door to room 305 was partially open, revealing a young man perched on the edge of the bed, like a captive bird ready to take flight. His sandy hair was disheveled, reminding me of the wheat fields back home in Kansas. His blue eyes, as bright as a summer sky, were fixed on the foredrip, tracing its path like a winding river. "Good morning," I said, my voice soft yet warm practice, like my smile. "I'm Edith, your nurse." His eyes met mine and I felt a jolt, an unexpected spark that briefly transported me back to the days of county fairs and first kisses under the Ferris wheel. He was handsome, with a light beard framing a strong jaw and a body lean and muscular. Beneath his hospital gown, tattoos peeked out from his sleeve, hinting at stories yet to be told. "Morning," he replied, shifting slightly, a grimace of pain flashing across his face. "I'm Martin. Martin had his appendix removed yesterday. He was my responsibility now, my charge to guide through the pain and discomfort, until he was strong enough to leave my care." "How are you feeling today, Martin?" I asked, stepping closer to check his vitals. The warmth of his skin under my touch was electric, his pulse strong and steady. Beneath my fingers, a faint scent of pine and soap clung to him, a refreshing change from the usual hospital smell. "Sorry, but okay," he said, offering me a small smile. A smile that made my heart flutter like a teenager's. I returned it, suddenly aware of the quiet yearning I'd suppressed for years. "You're not from around here, are you?" I asked, noting his lack of a southern drawl. He chuckled, a sound that echoed through the sterile room like a melody. "No, ma'am. I'm a Midwest boy born and raised in Illinois. Just passing through on a road trip." Over the next few days, I tended to Martin, helping him walk the halls, bringing him his meals, and making sure he was comfortable. I tried to maintain my professional distance, but it was hard to ignore the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, or how his muscles flexed when he moved. I found myself lingering in his room a little longer than necessary, drawn to his charm and his stories. Martin was an engineer, a problem solver by nature. He had been on a cross-country road trip, a journey of self-discovery after leaving his corporate job. "I wanted to see the country, meet real people," he said, his eyes shining with passion. "I wanted to find something more." "You know," I nodded, feeling a pang of envy. I had once dreamed of adventure, of a life beyond the confines of my small town, and then this hospital. But life had other plans, and I'd settled into a comfortable routine, burying my dreams deep beneath my duties. On his last day, I gathered the courage to ask for his number. I told myself it was purely professional, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I wanted to hear his voice again, to see his smile, to learn more about his stories. "I'd like to check up on you," I said, trying to keep my voice casual as I helped him pack his bag. "Make sure you're recovering well." He looked up at me, his eyes meeting mine, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. "Sure," he said, rattling off the digits as I typed them into my phone. I felt a thrill of victory, a small smile playing on my lips as I saved his number. Days later, I found myself dialing his number, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hi, Martin. It's Edith, your nurse from the hospital." I said, my voice sounding more confident than I felt. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee sometime." There was a pause, and for a moment I thought he'd reject me, And he agreed, and I felt a surge of triumph. I sat across from Martin in a small downtown cafe. The place bathed in the amber glow of a late afternoon sun. The light danced off his features, painting him with a rugged handsomeness that made my heart flutter. I'd fretted over my outfit, finally settling on a top that hinted at my curves and a skirt that showed off my legs, a nod to my cheerleading days tucked away in the back of my closet. Over steaming cups of joe, I made my moves, leaning in a little too close, laughing a little too hard at his jokes. But Martin seemed as unruffled as a calm Midwestern lake. His response is friendly yet distant and not. A frustration tightened in my gut. Was I just a ghost to him? "So, have you been holding up?" I asked, taking a sip of my coffee, the strong brew rooting me in the moment. "Much better," he said, flashing a smile that could have charmed the stripes off a skunk. "The scar's still a bit tender, but I'm back on my feet. I've even started working again. Freelance engineering gigs. I can do anywhere." I inched closer, my hand lightly brushing his on the table. "That's fantastic," I said, my voice soft as a summer breeze. He didn't pull away, but he didn't respond to my touch either. A pang of disappointment echoed through me. But I wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. I was determined to make him see me as more than just his nurse. Before I knew it, it was time to hit the road. As we left the diner, I was hoping he'd suggest a detour to his place, but he just tipped his hat and said his goodbyes. We walked off in separate directions, and I felt the weight of my solitude settle back onto my shoulders, like a heavy winter coat. Days turned into weeks, and I threw myself into my work, trying to forget about Martin. I changed shifts with the other nurses, volunteered for extra hours, anything to keep my mind occupied. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the memory of his smile, the sound of his laugh, the feel of his skin under my touch. And then one day, he walked back into the hospital, a beautiful woman by his side. I felt a pain of jealousy, my heart sinking as I watched them from behind the nurses' station. But as they approached, Martin introduced her as his sister Emma. She was suffering from some gastric issues, and he had brought her in to get checked out. I provided them with the best care I could, making sure Emma was comfortable and Martin was kept in the loop. I was professional efficient, everything I had always been. But there was a newfound warmth in my actions. Gentleness that came from knowing Martin was watching as I tended to Emma. One day, Martin pulled me aside, his hand gently grasping my arm. I could feel the warmth of his touch, the roughness of his fingers against my skin. "Thank you, Edith," he said, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You've been so kind to Emma, to both of us." I smiled, my heart fluttering at his touch. "It's my job, Martin," I said, but I could feel the chemistry between us, the spark that refused to die. It was more than just gratitude in his eyes, more than just professionalism in my touch. And in that moment, I knew that my feelings for Martin were not just a fleeting attraction, but something deeper, something that would stay with me long after he was gone. A few days later, after his sister was discharged, I invited him over to my house. I told him I wanted to check up on him, make sure he was doing okay. He accepted, and I spent the day preparing. I cleaned the house, lit some candles, and changed into a pair of snug yoga pants and a tank top that accentuated all my curves. I wanted to make him see me as more than just his nurse. When he arrived, I offered him a drink, my hand shaking slightly as I handed it to him. He took it, his eyes lingering on my cleavage before quickly looking away. My heart raced and I felt a thrill of excitement. My plan was working. We sat on the sofa, the tension thick between us. He talked about his job, his travels, and his life before the surgery. And I listened, hanging on every word, my eyes never leaving his. When I bent over to grab the remote, I knew he was watching me, his gaze heavy on my back. I looked at him through the mirror across the room, his eyes hungry, murmuring, "Oh my God," under his breath, "is everything okay?" I asked, playing coy, my voice a honeyed whisper. He cleared his throat, looking away quickly. Yes, just admiring your collection of books," he stuttered, nodding towards the shelf. I smirked to myself, knowing he was lying. His hands hovered near my hips as I passed by, the heat of his palms almost touching the fabric of my yoga pants. He was dying to grab me, and the anticipation was thrilling. But he was a good boy, keeping his desires in check. His sense of propriety, a testament to his character. The conversation flowed easily, the air in the room growing more electric with every shared laugh, every accidental brush of our legs. As the sunset painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, I decided it was time to take things to the next level. I sat down beside him, close enough that our thighs were touching. He took a deep breath, his eyes searching mine, looking for permission without a word. I leaned in and kissed him, my lips soft and tentative. He responded immediately, his hand sliding around my waist. Pulling me closer, the kiss grew deeper, more urgent, and suddenly, all the pent-up longing of the past weeks came crashing down like a wave. We broke apart panting and stared at each other for a long moment. "I've wanted to do that since the first day," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Me too," I admitted, my cheeks flushing, but I didn't know if it was appropriate. "Screw appropriate," he murmured. Capturing my mouth again, our kisses grew more passionate. And before I knew it, we were tangled together on the floor, his strong hands exploring my body, his mouth leaving a trail of fire in its wake. I hadn't felt this alive in years, the sensation overwhelming and intoxicating. But then the doorbell rang, shattering the moment Martin pulled back, his eyes wide with surprise and a hint of panic. I laughed softly, standing up and straightening my clothes. "It's just my neighbor," I assured him, walking to the door. When I opened it, I found myself face to face with my ex-husband Larry. His eyes narrowed when he saw Martin, and I knew I was in for an earful later. But for now, I had to play it cool. "Hi, Larry," I said, my voice calm. "Can I help you?" Larry held out a Tupperware container, his gaze flicking between Martin and me. "I just wanted to drop off these cookies," he said, his voice tight. "I know you're busy with work and all, but I thought you might like a little taste of home." "Thank you." I took the cookies, my mind racing, "but I'm actually just leaving. I'm going to visit a friend." Martin stepped into the doorway, a look of understanding in his eyes. "It's nice to meet you," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Martin, a friend of Edith's." Larry's grip was firm, but his eyes remained cold. "It's been a pleasure," he said stiffly before turning to me. "Call me if you need anything." I nodded, watching him leave before turning back to Martin. "Well, that was unexpected," I said, a nervous laugh escaping my lips. "I should go," Martin said. Standing up, "I don't want to cause any trouble." I stepped closer, placing a hand on his chest. "Don't worry about it," I whispered, looking up at him. "Let's just enjoy the moment." And with that, we picked up where we left off, the tension in the room snapping like a tightly coiled spring. We kissed again, deeper, this time as if we were trying to consume each other whole. It was a kiss that promised more, a kiss that hinted at a future filled with passion and possibility. But fate had other plans despite the fire that burned between us. The day ended with me lying in my bed alone and unsatisfied. Martin had left a gentle peck on the cheek and a whispered promise of another time hanging in the air. I couldn't help but feel a pain of disappointment, the ache of longing still pulsing through my body, like an unresolved melody. In the quiet of my room, I sighed, staring up at the ceiling fan. I was still dressed in my yoga pants and tank top, feeling both foolish and hopeful. It was clear that Martin felt something for me, but his restraint was palpable, like a wall of glass, keeping us just out of reach of what we both desired. As I lay there, the silence of the night pressing in around me, I felt a desperate longing claw at my chest. The memories of Martin's touch, his smile, his laughter, all swirled in my mind, taunting me with what could be. I yearned for him with an intensity that surprised even myself. A woman who had spent decades tending to the needs of others, often neglecting her own. I wanted to feel alive again, to feel desired, to feel the warmth of a lover's embrace. I wanted Martin. I clung to the hope that one day he would see me, not just as his nurse, not just as a friend, but as a woman worthy of his love and desire. Until then, I would wait, my heart aching with a hunger that only he could satisfy. I hoped with the desperation that kept me awake long into the night, that one day he would come to me and we would finally have our time.